In downtown Springfield, Missouri, at the historic Landers Theater, the current incarnation of the Ozark Mountain Daredevils played 4 sold-out shows in March of 2022. This was the kickoff of the band's 50th anniversary tour. As band members and backstage crew prepared for these performances, founding members John Dillon and Michael Soup Granda reminisce.
We're in the Landers Theater getting ready to go on stage in a number of hours for our 50th anniversary string of shows. And I'm having the weirdest flashback because I'm just looking at Soup over there. And 50 years ago, almost, within a few weeks, I was sitting in basically this exact same seat, watching everybody, the crew, put everything together for the first show in this theater, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so crazy to be back here again.
So after 50 years, what is the secret to the Ozark Mountain Daredevils' longevity and success? The Ozark Mountain Daredevils, backstage. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, Springfield, Missouri would become the nexus for the group that would become known as the Ozark Mountain Daredevils.
Well, I'm a local boy. I'm from Springfield. I went to school in Springfield for high school, then went to 4 years at Columbia, then moved out to the West Coast for a while when it was the thing to do in '69, and moved back here.
1965, I came up here to go to school and stayed at Drury for 4 years. And I think I graduated in 1970 in absentia, I think.
I'm the most rural guy. I came from the boonies, Howell County.
I came to Springfield in 1969. At the time, it was the only college around that my family could afford. It was a state college. Wasn't a university yet.
There's a lot going on for a town Springfield size. And so I eventually, I think it took me all the way to college before I really felt like I was fitting in, part of the whole thing.
I came to Springfield because I was looking for someplace other than Arkansas to be. I'd never been anywhere except Louisiana for a couple of years when I was a kid. And I was interested in the liberal arts education.
The many colleges in Springfield became places where young men could go to avoid getting involved in the ongoing Vietnam conflict.
The only major I declared was staying out of Vietnam. That was my main. I majored in that, and I minored in. Well, I was always been a math head, mathematics.
I didn't goof off because I didn't have the luxury, because Vietnam was happening. 68, it's become well known now that 68 was the worst year. It was the Tet Offensive, and when they surprised everybody. And that was the year I graduated. So it's like, okay, you gotta stay in school, start a family, or you're in the jungle,
Each of these young men had their own path towards finding their sound.
The Beatle invasion, the British invasion, and everybody went gaga. That kind of folded into my interest in music. But I started writing songs in high school, probably halfway through high school, and I was a slow learner on guitar. I gave it up 2 or 3 times.
When I was a kid in St. Louis, I was in a band, and I wanted to go see all the other bands. I'd go around St. Louis, and I'd go see the Isley Brothers, and I'd go see Bob Cuban, and I went and saw, like I said, Ike and Tina Turner. They were all kind of local bands up in St. Louis. My favorite, though, was Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry had a farm right outside St. Louis in Wentzville, and he would have parties out there. And he had parties out there, and he would be playing and rocking and rolling. And as a 17-year-old kid who couldn't drink yet, I could go to Chuck Berry's and drink. And he was up there and he was playing, and it was magnificent. The thing about Chuck Berry is not only the rock and roll, but his lyrics are so poetic.
But I love Chuck Berry. And so when I was in my teens, I mean, whenever, maybe 58, 59, I can't remember when it happened, but I went to the drugstore and bought Johnny B. Goode. That was my first record. It was also Steve Cash's first 45 that he bought.
I brought some rock and roll sensibilities with me, and then got down to Springfield. Once I got down here, that's when I developed an affinity for country music.
I realized all of a sudden that I always knew that music had power, but now, based on a lot of things that were happening culturally, marijuana, for instance, the Woodstock Nation, hippie bands with hippie music, that kind of thing. I mean, that was a real thing. That was a real era. And I realized that was where I wanted to fit in there. I felt like I fit there better than any place else.